Hello everyone. This Shabbos is one of great excitement because we are finally moving back into the shul, although we're doing it at a slow pace, but it's the beginning of our return to our beloved shul where we have been vanquished from the shul for the last 3 months. I was in shul this evening, and on my stender was the announcements of the last announcements that were distributed before we left the shul, and I was pained to see that it was the announcements of Parshas Kisisa. It was, I think, March 14th, 3 months ago, that we haven't been to shul, no announcements and no davening, and no shiurim. Now, Baruch Hashem, we're coming back. We could say the pasuk, Zeh hayom asa Hashem lagil v'nism chavo. This is the day that Hashem has brought us. We are rejoicing and celebrating in it. The pasuk in Hallel. I think very, very important point that has to be made, and that is that as we return to shul, it cannot be on the same basis as before, because we've gone through so much in the past 3 months, and hopefully we learned a great deal. We learned to appreciate things and not to take everything for granted. We learned how fragile life is and how important it is to take advantage of every moment of life is fraught with great value and significance. And if we return to shul and our davening is exactly the same it was before, we're distracted and we have a difficult time concentrating, we don't have much kavanah, and we're engaged in conversation, this chatter, and we have to stop the davening and wait for these people and those people. If that's going to happen, it's going to be an enormous tragedy, and it will mean that the last 3 months were in vain, and we didn't learn anything from the last 3 months. And the truth is, we have so much to daven for. Davening is at this time is so critical, because the world is mamish in turmoil. Everything is being turned upside down. For 3 months, we were in hibernation. People were not working. The world economy shut down. There was enormous danger. There were so many people. I just spoke to somebody from Borough Park. He was telling me the people in his shul, how many people passed away. All the people were sitting near each other. They became ill and they passed away. Enormous danger. And it gave us a new sense of how insecure life is. And even though now things are easing up, but they're talking about a second wave and a third wave, nobody knows. That's the truth. Nobody knows. Maybe we hope there'll be a vaccine, but nobody knows what the future is going to bring. And then, just as things were easing up and we were beginning to emerge from our enclosure and return to somewhat of a normal life, a life experience, there's a whole new episode of events that took place. There's the anarchy and rioting and looting and all sorts of power struggles and political changes that are taking place in the environment around us. So the world is in a state of turmoil. Our lives are insecure. We don't know where things are headed, and in these types of uncertain times, it's so valuable for us to be able to turn to the Ribono Shel Olam. Nothing happens by coincidence, and nothing happens by accident. It's not an accident that there was the coronavirus. It's not an accident that there is all this social unrest at this time. Nothing happens by accident. It's all orchestrated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if we have an opportunity to beseech the Creator of the universe and ask Him to restore our health and to restore our parnasa and to bring shalom and peace to the world, the fact that we're going to be in the shul will make an enormous and important difference. The Chumash at the end of this week's parsha tells us that Miriam and Aaron spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe Rabbeinu. The beginning of next week's parsha Shlach, is about the Meraglim who went to Eretz Yisrael, and they came back and they defamed Eretz Yisrael. So Rashi famously says, what's the connection between the two parshas? Why were they juxtaposed next to each other? So Rashi says because they had the same sin. The Miriam and Aaron spoke lashon hara, and the Meragim engaged in lashon hara. And Rashi says the Rishoyim ra'u v'lo lakhu musar. They saw the consequences. They saw what happened to Miriam, even though Miriam was just making a casual remark about her brother. But still, look how serious were the consequences. She became white like a leper, and they therefore they should have realized that when they're talking lashon hara about Eretz Yisrael, they should have realized the enormity of the avera, and as bad as the avera was of defaming Eretz Yisrael, but coming after seeing what happened to Miriam, they should have had a far deeper appreciation or understanding how terrible lashon hara is in the eyes of the Rebbeinu, and that compounded the sin. And the point here is that if a person doesn't learn from circumstances, if a person's blind, if a person's deaf, if a person doesn't grow from things that are happening in life, that's a terrible crime. The Rashi refers to the Meragim as Rishoyim, because they didn't pay any attention to what's going on in the world. How come they didn't notice? How come they didn't connect the dots? And if we go through an experience such as we've had in the last few months, and we see how much the world is churning like a volcano, so we need to go through a transformation and learn something from this experience. The king of fools, of somebody who doesn't pay attention to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to communicate to him, is Paro. Paro, over and over again, he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, I can't stand it anymore, get rid of these frogs, I'll do whatever you want, let them leave. The moment the moment Paro saw that things eased up, Paro changed his mind. He became hardened in his heart, and he said, I'm not letting you leave Mitzrayim. And this scenario repeated itself over and over again until the end was that Paro and the Egyptian army drowned in the Yam Suf. Because if you don't pay attention to what God has to say, then the consequences could be enormously severe. The Haftorah that we read on Yom Kippur, after Yonah, the Yonah was commanded by Kadosh Baruch Hu to go to the city of Nineveh and inform them that because of the evil ways, Od Arbaim Yom v'Ninveh Nehapechas, in 40 days Nineveh will be overturned. It will be overthrown. And then the people did tshuva, and God relented. So the question is, when Yonah delivered that prophecy, he was speaking in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't say that if you don't do tshuva, the city will be overturned. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, in 40 days from now, the city is going to be destroyed and overturned. So how could a prophecy of the Ribono Shalom not be fulfilled and not be true? So the Abarbanel says that the word nehapeches, od arbam yom v'ninveh nehapeches. Nehapeches means overturned. It means a transformation. So there's two ways that prophecy could be fulfilled. There could be a transformation of the physical location of Nineveh. The whole city could be demolished like Sodom and Gomorrah, or there could be an nehapeches, a total change in the individuals that were living in Nineveh. It was their choice. Either nehapeches, the city will be nehapeches, or the people have to change dramatically, and the fulfillment of the prophecy will be that the people of Nineveh will be nehapeches. So, my friends, Rabbosai, we are in a state of nehapeches. The whole world is in turmoil. Everything's turning over. And we went first through one turmoil, and now we're going through another turmoil. And there's uncertainty about the political future in America and the implications for Eretz Yisrael. And there's so many uncertainties that we're facing. So the world, everything is changing, dramatic changes. In the past, we have, in our lifetime, I don't think we ever went through such significant changes in such a short period of time. So the world is in a state of nehapeches. So we have a choice. We by going through this experience that we've had, and when we return to the shul, we could ourselves be nehapeches. We could transform ourselves. our davening could be powerful. Our davening could be with feeling. Our davening could be with a sense of awe that we're standing in a Makom Kodesh, in a holy place, in the presence of the Shekhinah. But if we ignore that, and perhaps in that schus, the pechas that's taking place outside of the shul will perhaps come to an end. But if we ignore that, and we come back to the shul, and we're there because it's a nice place to socialize, and we get to see our friends, and we haven't talked to people for so long, and now we'll be able to schmooze with them. Schmoozing is very important, socializing is very important. But the place for it is not in the middle of davening. And if we're not able to be moved by the mapecha that's taking place in the world, then the impact that could have been on ourselves, that we are nepechas, will be lost. Let us hope that in Mirz Hashem we indeed will be transformed, and our davening will be unrecognizable, and you won't be able to hear a pin drop in the shul, and we'll come into the shul on a whole new basis. It's not going to be the same old story. It's going to be a new davening, a new start, a new beginning. This week's parsha was the parsha Pesach Sheni also. Pesach Sheni, the Jews didn't bring the Pesach the first time, they could bring it a month later. What does that teach? That there's always room for a new beginning. Let's start over from scratch. Let's not repeat the same patterns of behavior as before. And in Mirz Hashem, in the schus of the mahapecha, which will take place internally within ourselves, it will lead to the end of the mahapecha that's taking place in the world around us.